Hi everyone, it's Gillian and welcome back to my channel and another crochet tutorial. For today's tutorial, we're working on the Rome halter top. This halter top is very easy to make. It has puff stitches on the bottom and it's made up of half double crochet stitches, so it works up very easily. To make this halter top, I use Red Heart Super Saver Ombre, and this color is called Green Apple. I also use a 6mm crochet hook. You're going to need your scissors, some stitch markers, and your tapestry needle. This is a free pattern and it's for the extra small. This is extra small. If you're interested in making a bigger version of this pattern, I will leave the link in the description below so you can go ahead and purchase a PDF version of a much larger pattern. Let's get started. To begin this pattern, you're going to start by putting a slip knot on your hook. You are going to chain 55. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 55. You should have a total of 55 chains. To begin row 1, you're going to skip the first chain or the stitch and you're going to make a single crochet into the next stitch. You're going to make one single crochet into each stitch until you get to the end of the row. At the end of row 1, you should have 54 single crochets. For row 2, you're going to chain 1 and you're going to turn. You're going to skip the first stitch and into the next stitch you're going to make a puff stitch. And to make a puff stitch for this pattern, you're first going to wrap your hook and you're going to go in to the stitch. You're going to pull up a loop and you're going to pull up a loop 4 times. So that's 1 time. You have 3 loops in your hook. You're going to wrap your hook, go into the stitch, pull up a loop. You now have 5 loops on your hook. Wrap your hook, go into the stitch, pull up a loop. You now have 7 loops on your hook. Wrap your hook 1 more time for 4 times, pull up a loop, and you now have 9 loops on your hook. You're going to wrap your hook and pull through all 9 loops, and you're going to make a chain 1 to close. You're going to skip the next stitch and a puff stitch in the next, and this is going to be your stitch repeat to the end of the row. Skip 1, puff stitch in the next. First you wrap your hook, go into the stitch and pull up a loop 4 times. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you're going to pull through all loops on your hook. And you're going to chain 1. And you're going to repeat. Skip the next stitch and a puff stitch into the next. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you're going to wrap your hook and pull through all the loops that's on your hook and chain 1 to close, and you're going to repeat. Skip 1, puff stitch into the next. 2, 3, and 4. And you're going to repeat that sequence of stitches all the way to the end, and I will meet you there. At the end of the row, you should have 2 stitches left. You're going to skip 1 and make a puff stitch into the last stitch. Chain 1 to close. And at the end of round 2, row 2, you should have 27 puff stitches. For row 3, you're going to chain 1 and you're going to turn. And for row 3, we're going to be working in between the puff stitches and we're going to make puff stitch between the puff stitch. So into the first space, you're going to make your first puff stitch. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pull through all loops on your hook and make a chain 1 to close. And you're going to repeat into the next space. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pull through all loops on your hook and you're going to chain 1 to close, and you're just going to repeat. You're going to repeat those sequence of stitches all the way to the end, and I will meet you there. At the end of the row, you're going to make your final puff stitch between the puff stitch and the chain one space. And you're going to chain one to close. And at the end of row 3, you should still have 27 puff stitch, so you want to go ahead and check your stitches to make sure you have the correct amount. To continue, for the next 3 rows, you're going to repeat row 3. So for row 4, 5, and 6, repeat row 3, and we'll meet back here at the end of row 6 to begin row 7. At the end of round 6, you should still have 27 puff stitches, and you should have 5 rows of puff stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For row 7, you're going to chain 1 and turn. You're going to make a half double crochet into the top of the puff stitch. And this is going to be a repeat to the end, and you're going to make a half double crochet into the space. Half double crochet into the top of the next puff stitch, and then a half double crochet in between the puff stitch. And you're going to repeat. Half double crochet into the top of the puff stitch and in between the puff stitch. And repeat. Continue with this sequence of stitches, and I will meet you at the end of the row. At the end of the row, you're going to make your last half double crochet into the chain 1. And at the end of row 7, you should have 54 half double crochet stitches. For row 8, you're going to chain 1, and you're going to turn your work, and you're going to make a half double crochet into the first stitch, and you're going to make 1 half double crochet into each stitch until you get to the end of the row. So continue making half double crochets into each stitch, and I will meet you at the end of the row. At the end of row 8, you should have 54 half double crochet stitches. To continue, for the next 8 rows, rows 9 through 16, you're going to repeat what you did in row 8. So go ahead and repeat those rows, and I'll meet you back here at the end of row 16 to begin row 17. At the end of round 16, you should still be working with 54 stitches, so you want to check your stitches and make sure that you have enough. And what you're going to do now, you're going to place a stitch marker at the beginning of round 16 and at the end of round 16, and that's where you're going to place your straps when it comes time to making them. For round 17, you're going to chain 1 and you're going to turn. And in the first 2 stitches, you're going to half double crochet 2 stitches together. So you're going to go in, you're going to wrap your hook first, go into the stitch, and you're going to pull up a loop, and you have 3 loops on your hook. You're going to go directly into the next stitch, and you're going to pull up a loop. You have 4 loops on your hook, and you're going to wrap your hook and pull through all 4 loops. And that's going to be your half double crochet 2 stitches together. You're going to continue, and you're going to make a half double crochet into each stitch until you get to the end of the round when you have 2 stitches remaining. So continue making your half double crochet stitches, and we will meet back here. I'll meet you at the end of the round. At the end of round 17, when you have 2 stitches left, you're going to half double crochet 2 stitches together. You're going to wrap your hook, go into that first stitch, pull up a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook. You're going to go directly into the next stitch, and you're going to pull up a loop, and you now have 4 loops on your hook. You're going to wrap your hook and pull through all 4 loops. And at the end of round 17, you should have 52 stitches. So with every round, you're going to be decreasing by 2 stitches. To continue with this pattern, you're going to repeat round 17 for rows 18 to 34, and that's a total of 16 rows. So we're going to meet back here at the end of row 34, and I'll see you there. At the end of row 34, you should have 18 stitches. For this next row, I'm going to call row 35, and I'm going to do something a little bit different than the pattern calls for. I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to turn into that same stitch. I'm going to make a slip stitch, chain 3, and I'm going to make a slip stitch into that same stitch. I'm now going to chain 3. I'm going to skip 1, and I'm going to make a slip stitch into the next stitch. And I'm going to repeat by chaining 3, skip 1, and a slip stitch into the next. Chain 3, skip 1, and slip stitch into the next. And you're going to repeat that to the end, and I'll meet you there. At the end, you're going to chain 3, and you're going to slip stitch into that last stitch. And that is the end of row 35, and next up we're going to start making the straps for the halter top. We're now going to start making the straps, and you want to make sure that your work is right side up. We're going to be slip stitching along the edges, and you want to make sure that the right side of your slip stitch are facing up. Chain 1, and you're going to slip stitch into that same stitch as your slip stitch. You're now going to slip stitch into the next row. Slip stitch into the next row. And this is going to be a repeat until you get down to your stitch marker. Okay, you're just going to repeat. And you're going to keep going until you get here. You should have placed a stitch marker for row 16, and we'll meet back there. At the end here, you're going to make a slip stitch into the space where you have your stitch marker. And now you're going to chain 101, and you're going to need to use some stitch markers to keep track of your stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 100, 101. So you should have chain 101 stitches. What you're going to do now is that you're going to skip the first stitch, and you're going to slip stitch into the next stitch, and you're going to slip stitch into each stitch until you get to the end. I'll meet you at the end. You're going to slip stitch into the same stitch when you made your slip stitch at the start of the chain, and then you're going to make a slip stitch into the next row. And you're going to continue making your slip stitches until you get to the very end. You're going to make a slip stitch into the last stitch here, and then you're going to chain 46. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 45, 46. So you should have 46 chains, and you're going to skip the first stitch and make a slip stitch into the next. And you're going to slip stitch into each chain until you get to the end. At the end, you're going to make a slip stitch into that same space where you made your slip stitch. And you're now going to make slip stitch into each stitch at the bottom of the halter top. So you're going to slip stitch into that next stitch, slip stitch into the next, and you're just going to repeat into each stitch until you get to the end. And you're now going to repeat what you did on the left side of the pattern. You're going to repeat the same thing on the right side. At the end of the row, you're going to slip stitch into that last space. So now what you're going to do, as I mentioned before, you're going to repeat what you did on the left side of the halter top on the right side, but in reverse. So here you're going to start with chaining 46, and then you're going to slip stitch into each chain, and you're going to continue making slip stitches up to where you have the stitch marker. Then you're going to chain 110, not 110 but 101, and you're going to slip stitch into each stitch all the way down, and you're going to slip stitch all the way up to the very top. So go ahead and do that. If you're a little bit lost, you can always go back and check the timestamp, and we'll meet at the end. At the end, I slip stitch into the chain 1, and you're going to fasten off here, cut your yarn. And you're going to go ahead and sew in your ends. And I only had 2 ends left, and I already sewed in the one from when I started the pattern. And you're just going to go ahead and hide this end the best way you can. So now I will show you how to attach the straps. For the bottom part of the halter, you're just going to tie the straps in the back, like that. For the top portion, you're going to weave, you're going to crisscross, so you're going to weave one end into the top and you're going to weave the other end into the opposite side, into the top, like where you made that chain 3 in the beginning. And your neck goes in here, and then you will tie this part around the neck. I'm going to flip this over. And that is the end of the tutorial. Thank you so much for visiting my channel. Please like and subscribe for more video tutorials, and I'll see you in the next video.